Hello, hello, and good morning, everyone. I have some very sad news. This is the last Small Biz Talk of 2025. I know, but don't worry, folks. We are going to be back next year. But I think that is why we are going to have so much fun today. If this is your first time joining us, hello, my name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicated to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. Lori, did you feel that passion? It's a sad, bittersweet moment, as I say, bittersweet Wednesday.
I did, and I just got a second to glance real quick into the chat before we launched, and I saw Emma was out there, so I had to say a good morning to Emma, so I can see our frequent flyers are already there. Yeah, I can't believe it's the end of the year. Look at Brenda's there. I just seen a few. I just glance every once in a while, but yeah, it's the end of the year, guys. Can you believe it? I was just saying I'm so glad because I'm needing a little bit of a break. It's been a wild, wild ride this year for sure. And last night, I let's say I had a about 35, 40 feet pine tree in my backyard. I now have a 15-foot pine tree in my backyard, and it just came down unexpectedly in a gust of wind, and it landed perfectly. It missed the house, it missed the fence, it missed my vehicle. It just landed in this beautiful fashion, and my neighbor already cut it up and took it off. So I am looking like, oh, I am unstoppable, man. I was close to being a tree munch last night and I wasn't. So I'm in a good mood just because the tree didn't knock anything out. I think that's a good enough reason to be in a good mood. I live in a woods full of trees, so there is always a possibility that anything can go wrong. Last week, I think it was last week, was it Sadie, or the week before, right before the show, I talked about this 400-pound bear that was on my porch in the middle of the night. So when you live deep in the forest, you just never know what is going to happen from one day to the next. So that's my introduction to the show today. Okay, guys, let's get started. So these are, well, I should say this is the only last webinar I have for this year. Next year, I have my typical done every single month CFO financial accounting webinars. As of right now, I don't know if that'll change, possibly not. Those are the only ones I'll be offering next year, but those will be repeated on a monthly basis. I know those will be back. But as always, if you have any questions on any of the other webinars that I was doing constantly or anything else, you know you can reach out to me as well as my colleagues at SBDC for additional information. Now, as far as upcoming shows, what I decided to do is on January 7th, we're kind of just coming back into everything from the holidays. I decided not to have anybody booked for that day. So we're just going to have a Lori Happy New Year special session. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I always say when I do these, I say, well, Sadie, we'll end it in 10 minutes and we always go 15 minutes over. So I thought we could start out with goals and desires and what do we want to achieve in the year or what have we learned or whatever. You guys make it up and we'll chat about it. But I thought about having somebody come on and I said, let's just put us all in a good mood with some great objectives for the year and let's have our happy small biz family get together and just chat. I have the other dates that I'm currently booking, so I'll get in touch with everybody on the beginning of January and confirm, and I'll have more information on this. But I just wanted to do a shout out that on January 14th, Sarah Peeler is going to come on. She's a life coach. Her friend and business associate that's a wedding planner is going to come on as well. So you're going to have a mixture of just different experiences they've had so far in the company. It's going to be a lot of fun. As I was speaking with Sarah, she had all of these situations she was going through. She was talking about her friend's company. I was like, wow, that's like a rodeo show. Let's let's get together and talk about it. So that's what we're going to do at the beginning of the year. And once we get into January, we'll have a whole plan by then. But today, I'm so happy to welcome back. I'm just going to call her our champion. Dalia has been on the show so many times, and I know so many of you in the audience know her, work with her, and love her. Dalia Fogenay is an accountant dedicated to empowering businesses through effective financial management. As the founder of DF Accounting Services, she has been instrumental in helping numerous clients streamline their operations, improve their financial health, and grow their businesses. With a strong commitment to ethical practices and continuous improvement, Dalia is known for her ability to simplify complex financial concepts and tailor strategies to each client's unique needs. Dalia, I'm just so happy to have you back on the show again and again. You will always come back on. You are like, I just can't imagine my life without you. I mean, it's been like a year and a half since you first came on as a guest, and now we're just as connected as can be. And you're just like no other I have ever met in this space, especially, you know? So, for those who have not met you before, let's get a little bit of a rundown on your background, your company, and what your company does.
Yeah, so I come from the background of accounting. So I worked in the industry for 11 years, and then I've been in the business 5 years. So I have a huge background in accounting. And I think what makes me like really good in this area is that I'm very passionate about it and I'm like a nerd freak about it. So I love learning more about it. I love doing what I'm doing. So when you're passionate about what you're doing and you're actually good on what you're doing, I think you get great results and you get people like yourself saying the things that you say. So I feel like what makes me successful in this industry is that I have worked a 9 to 5 job in the industry. I have learned what it feels like to work with big companies and how they develop their accounting department, worked in different careers in different industries. So I was able to grasp from that. And then I just implement those things with the small business owners, right? Because the small business owners are not exposed to what these big companies are doing in order to keep afloat and keep going and keep growing. So that's a little bit of my background. I know on other podcasts, I've given my full background, but pretty much that's where I come from and just been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah, and I think the distinction that needs to be made, and you're starting to be a rare bird in this industry, is that you have the accounting background. You come from a firm, you've seen a lot of different accounting requirements based on industries, type of companies, financials, and that's the thing that people, and we've talked about it on the show, and I don't think we can ever not talk about it enough, is the small business owner that's hiring somebody to do their bookkeeping. That's the terms that they would use. They don't realize that they may be hiring someone that has no formal accounting training. They're hiring somebody that has understanding of the technology. And like you and I have talked about before, and it's a misnomer, you wouldn't believe this to be true, but the QuickBooks trained people are sometimes the scariest because they have no accounting background. It's like take these tests and you've got a new career, you're launching a new career. And I just think personally, and I'm going to let you comment on that, but I think personally, one of the biggest disservices to the small business community is they don't even know that the person who's doing their books may not have an accounting background and why that matters. I mean, think about it. If I have somebody come over and they're doing electrical wiring in my house, I don't have to think, well, I wonder if they know anything about electrical situations. A plumber, a contractor, you kind of know that they have it and you don't even think to ask. So I think small companies who I don't know anything about, maybe electrical wiring, I do now, so that's not true, but I didn't at one time. I would just assume if they're going to come and represent themselves as such, they got the background. And that's not the case in this, and you wouldn't know it. So would you speak a little bit to that? Because that's the one thing I want to help people to have this understanding of.
Yeah, so it's interesting because when clients come to me, right? they're expecting me to do bookkeeping a certain way. Just make sure I'm categorizing things, um, get them the profit and loss statement by the time it's time to prepare taxes. And for myself, I take that intake call a lot. I ask them about their background and I let them know what they can expect from my firm and how my firm's going to deliver. And 9 out of 10, I always get a reaction. Wow, you're going to do all of that? Because what is happening in today's generation, I come from a background where I know many accountants, like my circle, it's old. Like I'm the only youngest person. Um,
I
but it's
love
because
that.
like I learned from this woman who would do her whole accounting firm was paper format. So I come from that background where I seen accountants who went for education, who had to do it a certain way, who didn't have technology at their disposal, right? So from learning from those people, what I'm doing is doing kind of the same exact thing, but doing it on a digital platform. What is happening today, and I think a lot of business owners are not aware of because social media paints it to be so polished up. And of course, social media gurus are never going to expose themselves.
Yeah.
So for example, of course, a bookkeeper or accountant is going to end up making their own course and they're going to end up wanting to train other people to be bookkeepers and accountants. If you're a very successful bookkeeper and accountant, your main priority is to grow your accounting firm and to grasp more clients so you can dedicate your time to your clients. Yes, it's about teaching tax strategy and it's great to create small videos to teach people about what little tax strategy is out there. But the main focus shouldn't be for you to train a group of people to do what you do, right? Because in reality, those people are making six figures just by their digital course. And a lot
Yeah.
of times they're not explaining to their members that it's going to take time. Like you have not just QuickBooks Online, getting certified through QuickBooks or getting certified through Gusto Payroll. It's not that. I always tell people you need to go get experience. I just had a lady over my home and she said, Dalia, I just got my accounting degree. Should I just apply for QuickBooks? I said, absolutely not. You go and what industry in accounting do you want to work with? Real estate. Then you go find a real estate firm that needs an accountant. You start off with data entry. You learn everything that you need to learn because how are you going to start bringing in clients and you don't even know the basics of doing accounting, right? And she was like, thank you for being so honest because on social media, they just paint it to be that I can be my own boss already.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's so
that's a
true. And
struggle.
couple things I thought of, and I want to make sure I get them all because that's key points. The accounting industry is not regulated by any certificate that you have to get to provide it. Like, for example, CPAs have to be certified by the state. I'm an EA. I have to be certified by the IRS, and I have to take continuing education every single year, and I have to reapply every 3 years for my EA once again and prove that I've done that, right? And if I then practice, as they call it, that's the term, and I have a whole list of things that I could do wrong, I'm forbidden from practicing then. There's a lot of criteria. Accounting doesn't have that structure. Now, I am always like anti-government, anti-structure, but I gotta say in this case, I almost would be happy if there got to be a little bit, or at least it had to have a tagline, not does not have accounting background, because I
Yeah.
think this is one of those things where you see a lot of times with the consumer not understanding, right? But another aspect I wanted to bring up, and I thought of it as you were starting to speak about you being the young one in the old time. And I was thinking about when I was young and went to my CPA, as well as we had lawyers then we also went to, we got a health check, especially with the CPA and our bookkeeping, which a lot of times we're under the same roof. They would sit down with us and help us to look at the numbers and understand where we are financially. Now, that is a huge component that you do with your clients that others do not. I think that is something that sets you apart. I haven't heard, and that's why I said I just adore you and send you referrals nonstop because I know they're safe with you. I don't hear other people talking about profit margins and your need to be profitable and look at your numbers to the degree that you do. And then once
Yeah.
again, from your background. So just walk us through a little bit with your clients, what you do when you're working with them from the perspective of looking at their numbers and trying to, I'm going to use this word, I think it's the right word, educate them on what's happening in their company.
That's what I absolutely do. So when I'm taking an intake call, I let the client know, we do a lot of education here at my firm. Are you willing to get educated in the sense where not only do I want to be responsible with sending you a profit and loss statement on a monthly basis, but I kind of want to tell you and show you what your profit and loss statement is telling you. So what we do different here is, along with the profit and loss statement, I create a financial summary based on the numbers of the profit and loss statement, and I give them the percentage margins. So it's what I notice with the client, it's one thing for you to see cost of goods sold is 30,000 for that month. But then when I say it's 75% of your revenue, you get whoa, whoa.
Oh, I know. I do that all the time.
All of a
It's so
sudden
true.
they're like, I like what you're saying. Let's cut costs there, right?
Yeah.
So not only do I have the ability to like make the client understand. I kind of study like client psychology. Like clients want to see percentage margins. When you tell them, okay, yeah, you're bringing in this much, but you're only keeping 20%. That's like a heartbreaker for them. Or, hey, let's talk about what's your goal? Like, how much do you want to spend on cost of goods sold? No more than 35. So now I'm holding them responsible. The next time I meet with them, hey, you did amazing. You reached your goal. Then the next following month, hey, by the way, what happened? You went over your goal again. So I'm constantly keeping them on top of everything. And I tell them, hey, we're focusing on what you want from this, right? You want to profit, you want to make money. You don't want to feel like you just have this business just to stay afloat. And I think that's different because I go a little bit up and beyond than other
Yeah.
people are willing to do. Because when you look at it in the accounting world, and a lot of CPAs too. And I'm kind of having a little struggle sometimes finding some good CPAs to work with because they get overwhelmed with work. And now the whole thing has shifted to pushing out returns, less contact with them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, 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 whoa. You cannot cut off the less contact. You have to keep the contact. You have to give them education. Your job as a tax preparer is to let them know where they can benefit with the tax code, where they can save money, what to do for next time. And I think right now we're living in a generation of people who just want to push out the most tax returns
Yeah.
where I'm a little bit more different. Like I'd rather have less clients, but make sure that my clients are with me long term. And as they grow, I begin to grow because they'll refer me out, right? So I kind of use a different psychology. I think a lot of people feel like I provide more than I should, and I think I don't because I have great relationships with my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And, once again, unpacking a lot of what you said, and it's all on point. And guys, this is why we're going to go into some specifics about year-end planning. But the reason I'm wanting to have this conversation that's so on point is that, once again, I'm trying to educate you guys in the audience to start to be able to see a little bit more into these different, I'm going to call them positions, but I'm really talking about activities. What does a CPA do, or EA in my case? What does an accountant do? What is bookkeeping, and where are you missing out on having some angles that are being covered? And in that, as you're saying, and it's true, I'm old. I've been around this for a long time. I'm come from the paper. My first company, we did paper, stuff as well, right? And so I've never seen the number of tax firms that are really just doing computer and pushing out returns, not really even asking if the data they get, which legally they don't have to, right? But it was still, you always would ask questions about the data. So when you are a small company, and this is where I want to go, you're a small company, you don't have a finance background, you don't understand any of this, you have a bookkeeper that doesn't have an accounting background, that is only thinking it's about putting something in a chart and may not even get it correct. You then go to a small business tax person that really is just pushing out as many taxes as they can, so they're not spending time looking at the numbers with you. You do not have or access to a CFO at that level at
Yeah.
all, and you're not your own CFO. So if you look at it, Dalia, the concept of what we call in accounting financial health, are you profitable? Are you making money? That isn't even looked at or considered in any of these situations. And this is what I believe is funneling into my really ultimate statement I want to make here is, and I've said this before, guys, I have never seen the percentage of people in business that are just putting money on their credit card, believing they're growing their business, but they're not. They're actually paying past months' debts with new money coming in. And so I think that we have, okay, I don't mean to, the first word that comes to mind is crisis. I'm not trying to make this into something big, but it kind of is. But I think we have a crisis in our entrepreneurial world of people that are slowly finding out that they're in severe debt, because I see it in the bankruptcy side, right? And I don't think it's because of the economy. I don't think it's because of a situation. I don't think it's because of politics. I think all those were always in existence, and those are things we made course corrections in our companies as we navigated around them. I think it's the lack of understanding of where you are in profitability to even know you need to make a course correction. So it's kind of like you're just flying blind, to use that expression. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm trying to kind of unravel or like take the top off the entire process from tax to accounting, and let the audience look in and see, oh, okay, maybe what I'm thinking I got covered, I'm missing some aspects as well.
That's so
Comments on that?
Yeah, so it's so good because that's one thing that I focus with my clients. So like my clients will look at their net profit and I have to educate them on the net profit. Yeah, you have a net profit of 60,000, but you have credit card debt that is 65,000. You're in the negatives. And unfortunately, you still have to pay taxes on the 60,000 because you cannot write off a payment to your credit card. Yeah, you want to pay yourself six figures in your business, but you absolutely can't because you need to focus on tackling this debt. And I let them know all the time. It doesn't matter that it's in the business. At the end of the day, you decide to sell this business, you decide to close this business, that debt is still yours.
It
And
still is. It still is. Yep.
yeah. So for me, it's, hey, I would love to do all the fun stuff, right? Where I would love to pay you a consistent salary. I would love to give you real numbers. But as long as you have credit card debt, and I even run that interest, like this interest is not 30% is not worth putting everything on a credit card. Or when I see people have certain, because a lot of people come with me with these issues already, right? Our main focus is do you want to be aggressive? Do you not want to be aggressive? And we create like a plan to aggressively pay all those credit cards out, right? Not only that, like I see the peace of mind that they're like, no one has ever even cared. And I'm like, don't you? I tell everyone, I'm a human being. I know, like if I have debt, I can't sleep well just
Yeah.
because I'm a business owner just like you. All my clients can decide to not work with me tomorrow. How
Right.
am I going to cover that debt? And I tell them, yeah, you're doing great right now, but I've been in the business world too long and I see a lot of clients who are making multi-millions and they can barely make six figures the next year. So I try to explain that to them and utilize the background I have and the experiences I have with other clients and tell them, um, the least thing that I want you to do is have debt. Now, you can utilize credit cards, don't get me wrong. Pay your expenses with the credit cards, but I'm going to tell you, hey, are you going to make a, like on our call, I'll say the next month, are we paying off our credit cards? Because I need to allocate that amount. Yes, I expensed it, but I want you to also keep in mind that's going to affect how much you're going to pay yourself this month. I think when it comes to bookkeepers are under the impression of just categorizing stuff, sending them the profit and loss, where that's the difference between me and my firm. We're doing things a little bit more different here. Not only that, like I always tell people, you're lucky. You got like a mini CFO without getting charged CFO prices. But
It's
I
true.
know, but
Yep.
I know by doing this right now, I've seen clients come to me and make 30,000 a year. When they start working with me a year later, they're in the six figures. And it's
Mhm.
just because I took time to go over their numbers, took time to go over their cost of goods sold. We start having problems. I'm net profiting. I need to save money for taxes, which is the fun part, right? But it's not overwhelming either because that's important too, where hey, we need to find you a CPA that is gonna help you with the tax code and the tax code is there to help us, right? And I think circling back to what you said earlier, if you have a CPA that is referring you a bookkeeper, I don't care what the price of that bookkeeper is. That CPA, they have liability. And if they trust the bookkeeper to do your books, then take their word for it. There
Yeah.
are certain CPAs and tax preparers that are to the point I won't take you on as a client if you don't work with Dalia. Because Dalia's gonna save them from ever getting fined. They know
Yep.
that I'm gonna communicate on behalf of the client and I'm gonna keep my CPA on the loop. I'll let him know, hey, by the way, the client is profiting too much money. You need to book a call with the CPA so you can come up with the tax strategy. We're coming to that point in life right now.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we're coming where all of a sudden you've got all these different services being offered, and then people realize maybe I'm not getting the kind of service I absolutely need. And there's going to be some people that will shine as the ones to go to. I want to come back on a couple things. You had mentioned the credit card debt. And I think, like I said, I'm kind of repeating on this, but the most serious thing for me is that people are falling into this just open statement that, oh, entrepreneurs have to put money in the company. Now, my CFO words on me is you don't put any money in the company unless you understand why you're putting it in. Is it to buy inventory? Great. Is it to maybe do some kind of advancement? Is it to pay for debt that you weren't profitable? And then you've got scarier things like those merchant and cash advances that you don't even know what the interest rate is. So when you look at business with very little wiggle room in the margins and you have all of these things coming into play that people don't understand, they're using the credit cards, they're taking cash advances, they're doing all these offerings. They're not really realizing if they're profitable. No wonder what we're seeing is so many issues financially with people. I was working with a client yesterday and they were selling some shoes and they offered afterpay, which, that's where you get the installments. You already checked in. I didn't realize because I said, well, we got to look into it. How much are you paying to offer that? I didn't realize that Afterpay was charging her 6% for those installment payments because Afterpay. I didn't know that they're going, okay, you can get the money up front on a $200 pair of shoes. She's getting $200, but she's asked to pay 6% on that $200 for using Afterpay in addition to the 4% on the credit card. Crazy stuff that nobody even understands. So I just wanted to point out that this taking on debt and using some of these resources that I see advisors and social media saying are great is actually problematic. I also, before I pass this on to you, I want to talk about a question that Anonymous has into the chat because I want to add Q&A. I want to add a whole nother layer to this, and it's a good springboard into this layer. So I follow me as I unravel this. So Anonymous was asking about Gusto and saying, and other small business payroll companies, would you suggest this for self-employed business owners to help calculate taxes if they can't afford accounting services right now? Dalia, I am going to take that and I am going to put on my tax hat. Okay. I'm going to
Okay.
come at it from the EA perspective before I even go send it to you. And CFO a bit, but really, because guys, I speak three languages. I speak tax, account CFO level, and I also speak legal structures, right? Which is kind of rare in that. So this is where let's add a layer of complication. And Dalia and I were just speaking about this before the show. Yes, you've got the bookkeepers that maybe don't have a bookkeeping background, but now you are also playing with the intertwined relationship between your tax returns and your legal structure. So this intertwined relationship between what would be considered how you're taxed and what would be considered how you are legally structured. Now, the legal structures are via state statute versus state, you register with the state. That's legally. How are you recognized legally? And tax can be a whole nother animal. Like you can be an LLC taxed as an S corp. You're legally registered as an LLC, but you're taxed as an S corp. When you start to look at the relationships that must happen between the legal structures and the tax, oh my God, is it not convoluted and confusing? And I thought, like, when I got more information, I was going to see it's not that complicated. But as I got more information, I realized that's a whole nother deep level. Let me take this back to the question. You can't use Gusto. You can't take a W-2. You're a self-employed individual, which means you're going to be an LLC or a sole prop. You are not paid through a W-2. We can say pay yourself, but it really is, at the end of the day, your net profit on your Schedule C is what money you made, and whether you took it as a check, you transferred it to your bank account, you left it in the business bank account, does not matter. That is how you're taxed. So legally, from a legal perspective, your legal structure does not present a payroll scenario, a W-2 scenario. Corporations, taxed as a corporation, do, because you're an employee. So self-employed people do not take W-2s, but you can see how, like I said, I just have to say the small companies, bless their heart, because they don't realize that there's all these underpinnings. I've had people that were sole props sign up for a payroll company like Gusto that went through and did it, didn't question it, which that was not correct. They're now on a W-2 and they shouldn't. I have people who were taxed as S corps not take the reasonable salary on the W-2. And Dalia, where it really gets dinged, yeah, IRS does catch this sometimes, but where they really get hit hard on this? And once again, just level of experience. When you have a situation like the disasters or COVID, and the SBA looks at their tax returns at their legal documents and they don't align. And I cannot tell you the number of people who were in the disasters and got denied the SBA loan because they did not follow the proper tax and structure with their legal structure. So also having somewhat of a familiarity with the legal structures and the requirements of the legal structures is kind of a necessity a bit from somebody doing the bookkeeping, because I have seen bookkeepers put people on W-2s. So I just added another confusing layer, but great question, Anonymous, because it allows us to talk about the complications. Didn't mean to be spending so much time just talking about the complication, but I think it's so important for people to hear our conversation so they have an awareness. I'll just throw that whole big thing to you, Dalia, in case there's anything you want to add to that.
What I would like to say is, when considering Gusto, like Lori said, when even considering payroll services in general, that is for the S Corp compliance. Corporation, when you are structured as a corporation, when you are self-employed, sole prop, single member LLC, you don't need to run payroll for yourself, nor you should be able to, because technically you are going to pay self-employment tax. That is why when people start net profiting, I always tell people, when you start net profiting more than 30,000, then you should consider becoming an S Corp election. And even then, I have to see that the business owner is even, what's, for the lack of a better word, like, able to take time to follow compliance, because even with an S Corp election and just becoming a corporation, there's no such thing as saying, I don't have time to do this. No, no, no. The compliance level over there is to a whole nother level. Yes, you can benefit from being an S Corp because you can pay a portion towards payroll and the rest will be self-employment, right? I get it. You benefit from that because payroll, you don't get taxed as much, right, as paying self-employment taxes. But then at the same time, you have to have the personality where you have to accept, I'm now a corporation. I know I can't afford an accountant, but technically, because I'm making the commitment to be a corporation, I need to hire an accountant to help me with it. The problem is right now, a lot of business owners who are now in the position to be a corporation, they're trying to do it yourselves. And keep in mind, when it comes to payroll, even me myself, I have to constantly take courses. I got to constantly educate myself. I got to also be an HR representative because I offer payroll services to my clients. And the state of California is always adding new regulations for payroll, new regulations, especially if you decide to hire even one employee. That's another mess too, right? Because we got the retirement funds that we talked about
Yeah.
last call. But if you're self-employed, you do not need a payroll software. You're going to pay self-employment tax on whatever you net profit. And then as far as calculating taxes, I really don't know what they meant, like as far as business taxes. Um,
Yeah, and in that, what I always, there's this weird thing that I hear out there, and I've heard it repeated many times, and for the life of me, couldn't even figure out where in the world they get this from. But I have clients say to me, and then I'll answer this question. But I have clients say to me, "Oh, they business advisors tell them that they should do thirds." I can't remember. It's so weird, like a third for tax, a third for cost of goods, and a third for net income. It's the weirdest thing.
um,
Have you ever heard that line? I can't tell you how many people said it to me, and there's no validity to it. So a lot of times our people are saying, well, how do I calculate to have an idea of how much of my net profit that I need to pay taxes in? And I'll meet with you and Anonymous through the SBDC. We can have a Zoom call because I don't want to go through it here. Maybe we'll talk about this on January 7th. Maybe we'll do that. On January 7th, I'll walk you guys through this a little bit more, but we'll do that. But people don't understand that it's more complicated because you got to take the net profit, you got to take the additional deductions and credits, then you got to figure out your tax bracket, et cetera. So it's a little bit more complicated, but there can be a way just to get in the ballpark of an estimate on that. But while we're talking about retirement, I want to bring another aspect up, Dalia, because once again, social media is pushing everybody to this S Corp. I get people all the time saying, well, I'm thinking I need to be an S Corp. Well, where did you get that social media? I'm like, you haven't made any money. Okay. In fact, somebody the other day was so into their social media and they had to have a tax saving strategy. And I think I mentioned on the show before, I said, what you're doing from a tax saving strategy is phenomenal. It's excellent. Don't change it. They go, I'm not doing anything. I go, yeah, you're not making any money. You're not paying any
that's
tax.
why people need nothing.
I finally
Yeah.
got their attention by saying that. I'm like, as long as you continue not making any money, you got a great tax strategy. But I'm for S corp taxation when it makes sense to do so. I am. I'm taxed as an S corp, but what I do like looking at when it doesn't make sense or it may not for the full 5-year commitment is I think that the 401s or the retirement accounts get underrated. They don't realize how much you can drive down your taxes when you have money by putting it into a retirement account, and you don't have to commit for 5 years, right? If you're not profitable enough, you're not paying the extra 1120s tax and all that, and you're putting money away. At the end of the year, yeah, I save some things on self-employment taxes for the S Corp. People think they're saving on federal and, state, but it's really my having the cash and putting it into a retirement account and then using a retirement account that I can do matching within my own company. That's the key. I can take my net income down a lot. And especially because I'm older, I can put more in, right? And so I think that that's the one that's not sexy that people don't talk about, but that's your really great tax saving strategy. I can tell you've got some thoughts on that.
That's like the most sexiest tax strategy ever.
It is, isn't it?
Me and
I know.
Laurie are like nerd freaks when it comes to
Yeah,
that stuff.
totally, isn't it? It's great. People are like, I'm going to do this and I always say to them, I go, you left out running money through the Cayman Islands. We need to do that too. Because the other ones are so bizarre. I get this stuff like, I'm going to open up this and it's going to be a trust and it's going to be in this trust and then it's going to be incorporated in Wyoming. And I'm like, you're just giving me a headache.
Mhm.
This is crazy talk. Yeah,
Yeah, I shut
really,
it down.
I do too. It's the non-talked about things that are really the tools because you know what? If I went on YouTube right now and I said, you're missing out on a 401, I wouldn't get the clickbait. I wouldn't get the clicks.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
So
talk about
I, you
retirement
know,
funds.
If I may I give you an example of what just
Please.
happened? Okay, so
Yeah.
I love that you're bringing this up. So, I have a client. I'm not going to say what platform she's in because some people may know her, but she's a content creator and she makes a lot. She just became a full-time content creator. It's her first year, and she has made more money than she made doing her 9 to 5 job, which she had a really good 9 to 5 job, making really good money too. So, more of the story, immediately, me and the CPA recognize that she is net profiting so much money because content creators tend to net profit a lot of money, especially when you don't have advertisement behind it.
Right.
It's awesome. You're the dream content creator, right? So, me and the CPA were like, she needs a financial advisor. She's at this step. So, we
Mhm.
transitioned her from an LLC to an S Corp, and
Okay.
now she has a financial advisor because she has so much money that we need her to sit with the financial advisor because me and the CPA recognize she's a content creator. Like, it is not smart for us to tell her find more expenses. There's so
Right.
much expenses she can have
Right.
in this industry, right? So me and the CPA are aligned. And you know the CPA, Michael. He's amazing. He's
Oh,
been on this
yep, yep,
podcast.
yep. He has.
Um,
He is great.
yeah, he is awesome. So me and him were talking, and then the client comes back to us and says, by the way, the financial advisor said I should accumulate, like, have more expenses because my tax bills look, after all the strategy he came up with, he said that I should have more expenses because my bill's still going to be a little bit high. And I told her, I said, let me ask you something. And she was like, what? I said, do you think it's smart to spend money on something you don't really need in your
I know.
business just so you can save yourself money on taxes? Do you hear yourself? And she
Yeah.
said, exactly. So I said, no, what you do, you go put that financial advisor to work. That's why you hired him. You go tell him, no, you need to find me something else I can maximize. If I maximize my Roth, my traditional,
Yep.
my SEP. Dalia says I qualify for a solo 401k because I don't have no employees. A
And
solo
that's what I
401k
love. That's
is
what I
huge.
have.
It's
Yes.
so big. I think you can do what? I don't know if it's in the 40,000s you can invest into it, I think.
And then you get to do, I think it's 20% of your net income as a matching contribution.
You see? So I
Yeah.
told her, I educate her. I said, look, you're going to have people that you're going to have to put to work. I said, but the good thing is that you have people like me and your CPA that we're going to educate you on how to put those people to work. I said, that's the lazy way out. We're not going to expense nothing because it's no benefit. Now, if you need an expense, cool. I said,
Yeah.
I'd rather have that money go towards your future and towards your retirement. And she was just like blown away. She was like, I'm so thankful. Like, you guys work good as a team. And I spoke to the financial advisor and he was like, okay, Dalia, like, not gonna, I said, don't do it with my clients. With anyone else, I was like, we're
Yeah.
gonna set people straight.
I've had that same conversation. I've had people say, I go, you're buying something you don't need just to save on taxes. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. Yeah, if you need it and it can benefit you, absolutely, but it makes no sense. I know I had somebody with this crazy conversation that they were being told by a lawyer to set this. They had a couple pieces of property. They were going to put it from this trust into this next trust. I mean, such a confusing legal
Mhm.
layer, and that's a red flag for the IRS, and it didn't even make sense. And I said to her, and it was classic because I said, how long have you owned this property? And I thought she was going to say like 7 8 years. I was just trying to make a point, right? Because she would need to do this to protect herself in this weird way that didn't make sense, and I needed to try to explain to her. And she says, oh, my family owned it since the 1960s. I said, oh, then you must have been through so numerous lawsuits. And she goes, well, we never have. I go, then why are you thinking you need to do all this crazy stuff? So my point of bringing this up, Dalia, is people say things, but they're not thinking about what they're saying. If they thought about what they would say, they'd see the unrealisticness in it.
I
So
also want to bring up, Lori, remember how you said on the beginning, like when we talked before the show started, you said that we also want to kind of walk people through like what they should do. I'm a firm believer that people should take everything one step at a time, especially when it comes to like tax strategies and things like that, like formation. The main focus is if they can take anything away from today, focus on, is my formation correct? Is my financials correct? And now to the point where it's like, okay, you're following compliance. Now you're growing to the point where your net profit is good, right, Lori? From your
Yeah.
net profit, that's when you start implementing tax strategies. I think
Yeah.
people are doing everything backwards where they're trying to implement tax strategies on a negative net income. You're spending more money and you're putting more eyes on yourself because you're using a strategy you technically cannot take advantage of right now. And then grow yourself to the point where, yes, you deal with a financial advisor, then you get a trust, then like you do an
Yep.
umbrella. Like, I remember back in the day, it was something you build up. It's like
Yep.
like when people are trying to get out of debt, it's like the snowball.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
something
Yep.
you build up to get to that point. But I think right now, because social media, and not saying social media is bad, trust me, there's some good people to listen to,
Right.
right? But please make sure that it's like a hill. You got to take one step at a time before even thinking about any tax strategy.
I think that is so true. And I'm going to even add on to it. Everything is in reverse, but I'm going to take it even lower. In my day, people got a business idea, they tested it out, they got a feel for it works, they created something, they sold it. Then they might consider finding a legal structure if the idea didn't have huge risk at the time, right? Now people are like, I literally every single day somebody says, okay, and I'll have my first meeting. They go, I got my LLC. I'm thinking of doing the S corp. I've got the business license. I've got all this set up. And I go, okay. And then what do you do? Well, I got this idea. I'm like, wait a minute. You did all this and you got an idea. So
Mm.
the concept has been flipped where nobody considers they can operate as a sole prop. That's the biggest thing I've been telling everybody. Just be a sole prop for a while and put your toes in the water. So I feel like everybody is just jumping into all of these legal structures and complications and tax before they have even proven that they have an idea that will sell in the marketplace, that they can produce, etc. So the whole brainstorming idea entrepreneurship has become an immediate paycheck for, sorry, but the legal Zooms and the Gustos and all these different companies that exist now and the social media, clicks and stuff before the entrepreneur even got on solid ground.
That's so good that you bring that up. I had a friend of mine, a really close friend of mine, that he was like, I'm ready to start my business. I'm like, great, I love it. Like he told me all his ideas. I just observed everything he was saying. And I said, okay, great. You're going to start off as a sole proprietorship. And he said, what?
Yeah.
I said, you plan on tackling the farmers markets. Can we see how successful? I see the vision. I can tell you a lot of things too, how you can grow this vision. I said, but can we test out the farmers market and see how well you do there? I said, the second you open up a single member LLC, you have to pay $800 to the state of California. You have to have an accounting software to keep track of your financials. You got to create a separate business account for or account in general, just to keep track of that because you don't want to commingle your funds.
Right.
And I started walking him through everything. I said, can we focus on just growing the business? Can we focus on what's working in the business, what product is moving, what product is not, how much you should sell your product for? Because are people buying it at this rate? Because I know you're coming up with this number, but we haven't even tested the product out in the real world. And he was like, so what does this mean? I said, it means we're going to hold off on creating an LLC right now. I need you seeing what event space you can be in. Go talk to these farmers markets, go see what their fees are, and then focus on just where are you going to accept money. For right now, I really just want you accepting money on Zelle. I don't even want you dealing with the headache of Square and paying 2-3%.
Right.
You're trying to make money, not push out more money towards someone else just so you can make money. And he was like, man, thank you so much, Dalia, because I'm thinking like I have to do all of this. And it's just like, no, I want to see if this business works first, because if it doesn't, we can readjust. And then until it starts working, then that's different. Let's open up an LLC then. That's what I'm stating. Like when it comes to props, no one wants to talk about it, but every old business started off as a soap prop.
Yeah, in fact, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. I have it on a daily basis. Sole props aren't sexy. Nobody makes money off sole props. The government doesn't make money. You don't pay the 800. You don't do all this. Do you know about 10 years ago, don't quote me on the exact time, but about 80%, 70 to 80% of our companies were in the United States operated as a sole prop.
Yeah.
Restaurants, everybody operated as sole prop. That number is still about 60% or so, but it's changed not because of more lawsuits, not because of more necessity, because of the people who are making money on getting people into the LLCs. And so people do not understand that the sole prop I have people say, well, I wanted a legitimate business. Like a sole prop's not a legitimate business.
Yes.
Okay, that's not true. People say, well, I wanted a tax break over the sole prop. I'm like, it's the same tax
As
form.
an
Okay, that's not
LLC.
true. And the other thing, I think one of the most disservices that has been done is, I hear this all the time. Well, I have to get an LLC so someone doesn't take my house. That's literally the words I hear on a daily basis. And I walk people through how that is. Everything has a little bit of truth in, but that has like 99% not true, right? Maybe I'll make a
Mhm.
note. January 7th, I'll run through this a little bit more, guys.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
explain that, most people don't even go to court over things because you have to go to small claims court under 10,000. And if I'm a customer that's mad at you, I'm probably not going to go through it. And if I do, I have to hire a lawyer and go through the discovery phase, which can be, anywhere from 5 to 10,000. The LLC structure is not protecting you. Nobody's going to say, thank God I'm an LLC, so I didn't have to pay for a lawyer. No, you're still going to have to pay for it, right? So
Yeah.
having like an E&O, errors and emissions insurance, is going to
Mhm.
pay for the discovery phase. I'd rather be a sole prop with E&O than an LLC without, because the
Yeah.
LLCs not allowing somebody to sue me over what the company is worth. But in most situations, like your guy at the farmer's market, who's going to go and sue him? And then the catch is, say you have an employee issue, say you didn't do proper hygiene and you poisoned somebody and they died, that's a civil liability. The LLC is not protecting you. So a lot of the belief that the LLC is the Superman shield is not true, and a lot of belief that it's needed, that the sole prop won't suffice. Now, I went through things really fast, so there's a little bit of not completeness to it. But what I'm saying is that the entrepreneurs are stressed, just like your example. It's a good one, Dalia. They're stressed thinking they suddenly got to deal with all this unknown just to even look at their idea and see if it can be sold in the marketplace. They're then stressed, burdened with all these rules and things they have to follow and all these payments they have to make. Then they're stressed with the government documents that I see them get all the time because they didn't follow the rules. And they don't realize that there is a beautiful choices out there in simplicity. And so growing little by little and not engaging in all these tax strategies or heavy duty legal structures. Now, I'm not saying there's not times that somebody has to start an LLC right away. When I see people have high risk companies, yes, I agree, but most of the 99% of the people we're talking about aren't in that category.
No, I also want to say, Monica, I love Monica. She had given us an example about like her children wanting to start an arts and craft and her wanting to be part of a vendor in the farmers market. Even with a sole proprietorship, there's this level where you can apply for a DBA. So now instead of it being like Monica's business, it's now the DBA business. And of course, keep in mind, you guys, like it costs money to be in business. Business is not something where you feel like you're only able to sell your products and that's it. No, even if you're a sole proprietorship, you definitely need to look at general liability to protect yourself. Like, don't expect also like not to spend nothing at all. There's a cost of doing business in the United States, especially California.
Yeah.
Now, I would say like if you reach out to those farmers markets or vendors, tell them I am a DBA, and I get taxed and just give them, when you fill out a W-9, you just put your DBA name and you put your social security number. Their job is just to be able to get you a 1099 if they have to get you a 1099. They shouldn't be emphasizing that you need a LLC structure. It doesn't work like that.
And I have heard that, and they're doing that a lot because I don't want to bring this confusing topic in. They believe it's helping them in AB5. Some people are trying to push people into the LLC thinking that makes that justified independent contractor, and it doesn't. I think there's one thing that our conversation, if there's a takeaway that I'd like to emphasize, and this is how I'm going to say it. This stuff is more complicated than people have any idea. Because look at you and I just been chatting forever, and we have been talking about the legal perspective, the tax perspective, the accounting perspective. And when you look at anything and go in through AI, and I use AI, I'm not against AI, but you can see that trying to find out all these angles from you just doing your DIY research, it's more complicated than you believe. And I keep talking about it. It's a perfect storm because the legal aspects and the tax aspects are getting more complicated every day. And then you have all of these third-party sellers that are making it sound more simple than it ever was. And
Yeah.
in the olden days, and this is another thing I talk about the olden days, just because it's prevalent. It's not like I love the good old days. I'm not doing it from that perspective, but people did what I talk about a lot. They stayed in their own lane. And I'll tell you what I mean. When I went to my CPA and I said, okay, this is what I'm thinking of doing, my CPA would give me CPA information, tax information, but say, but you better go talk to the lawyer to see if that makes sense legally. I would have gone to a lawyer and the lawyer would have said legally, but make sure you talk to a CPA to make sure that that's
Right.
proper for tax. And both of them would say, make sure you go to somebody to discuss the bookkeeping accounting portion so it follows the rules, right? So I would have gone to three different people who have three different expertise, and each of them would have made sure they pushed me down the road to know I needed to talk to the next person.
Right.
Today, we have nobody staying in their own lane. Like I say, I always say, I wear three hats because I have three different levels of education. And I'll say, okay, I'm now talking about as from my EA, I'm now talking about from my CFO, I'm now talking about from my legal structure perspective. But you have people that are making it simple and consulting on all three without even giving the person the indication that there is a complexity. So my statement for today is if you walk away going, oh, there's a little bit more to this than I realize, let me have an understanding of my profitability. Let me examine if I'm borrowing money, if I'm borrowing it for a good reason and I should be. Let me look at the interest rate that I'm being charged. Let me look at maybe I can function as a sole prop. Let me look at maybe just a retirement account would be beneficial to me as I'm starting to make money. Let me look at having a plan and let me make sure I'm really hearing from people by asking questions about their education and their experience before just trusting in them. That would be
I
my
love that.
conclusion on what we talked about today. I know we were going to get into a lot, but I think this probably went in a direction it needed to be. I can tell from all the questions that it
Yeah.
definitely needed to be. What would you add to today, Dalia?
To today, I think I just want to highlight something that we were supposed to talk about,
Yeah,
but I'm
please.
just going to run it through fast.
Yeah, please.
If you guys can take anything from today, keep in mind that right now is the time to go over your financials. Make sure that you go over your financials with your bookkeeper or with yourself if you're doing it yourself. Have that conversation with your CPA before the new year starts because your CPA is going to be busy this new year. Start if you're concerned, maybe talk to someone to go over your finances with you. Like if you can't have a standard bookkeeper, talk to someone who's willing to book a 1 hour call with you and just charge you for that 1 hour call. Talk to Lori. I know that SBDC offers for Lori
Yeah.
to go over people's stuff. Right now is the time to talk to someone, figure out what's going on in your business, where it stands right now, because you do not want to go into 2026 worried about where does my business stand. Create a plan now, plan ahead, and then like I always tell people, like do a checklist of your goals, what you want to do with your business. Once you speak to your tax preparer, kind of move on from there, right? But right now is the time to look at those finances. Don't wait until next year because sometimes you want to use tax strategy right now before the new year, right, Lori?
Yep,
So that's
absolutely.
the main focus. And
Yep.
the first thing before even looking at your finances, I really want everyone to see, am I in the right business structure? First thing first, because you
Yep.
don't want to carry that on to the next year where your
Yep.
business structure is all messed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially because, like I've said in previous shows, Delia, I have never in my entire existence in this seen the California Franchise Tax Board and the Office of Finance send out so many letters to people. I'm getting like three or
Yeah.
four people getting letters a week that are franchise tax boards seeing that they didn't pay the 800. They're going into the Secretary of State website. They're checking the database. Office of Finance is checking the database. I think that the computers are more connected now, so I've never seen them as aggressively checking into things like they do. So I think it's real important to check your legal documents. I'm going to add on to what you're saying. Check your legal documents. You can go into the Secretary of State if you're filed with them and make sure you have an active status. Make sure your statement of information has been filed. Make sure your 800 is paid, your business license, because I'm seeing more aggressive checking. And what always seems to happen is right around the tax time, governments do kind of look and audit things more. It just kind of happens. And so I think it's real important to take the year to say, okay, let me make sure all my ducks are in a row. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, one as simple as a retirement strategy has to be funded before the end of the year. So you have to know what that number is. And if you're an S Corp, taxes and S Corp, you have got to meet with somebody before the end of the year. It's NIT, not DIY. You have to figure out what your net profit will be to make sure you have a reasonable salary as a W-2. And that has to be done before the end of the year as
Yeah.
well. So there's
I
a
was
lot of
gonna say, Lori, real quick with that. If you're an S corp and you didn't know, this is important. This is why we're making it be your homework to go check your structure. I was talking to a new client. He thought he was an LLC until he sent me his IRS documentation and it said he's an S corp. I said, "Sir, you're coming to me right now. We need to set up payroll. We need to
yes.
pay you something. I need to do your book. I need to do your bookkeeping because I need to see how much you're going to pay yourself out because you said you were going to run payroll. That's the compliance. So this is why we're bringing this up because if you're an S corp and you haven't ran payroll all year, you want to get to that right now."
And I'm seeing a lot of people that fill out that form and they have no idea. And then you get hit with the underpayment penalty. And that's where a lot of people will then not get the disaster loans or unemployment when that came up because they didn't have the W-2. So, and here's something I'd like to also say. I would like to suggest a new desire for next year. You ready? You're like this one. Okay, I
Yeah.
got a new term. Lori's got a new term. The can own a quart. Can you pay for a quart of milk? I got to have a new one, right? So how people are saying, I want to be an entrepreneur. Even the kids are want to be an entrepreneur. I want to rephrase that. Okay.
Okay.
I want to be a profitable entrepreneur.
Ah, I love that. I love
I
that.
mean,
Be a
let's
profitable
not,
business.
let's get out of this just being an entrepreneur because that doesn't buy a quart of milk. Okay. Let's make 2026 our year to become profitable entrepreneurs. That's going to be, how is that for the tagline for the ending of the year? And we're going to start out January 7th. Hold those questions you had today. That's just Lori, an hour of Lori. But let's put that in our Christmas stocking. Dear Santa, I want to be a profitable entrepreneur next
Exactly.
year. Bring me the information, the expertise, and the individuals that can help me understand how to become a profitable entrepreneur. That's your Santa Claus wish. What do you like that,
I
Delia?
love it. I love it, Lori. People are saying yes, boom on the comment. It's so
Yep,
true. It's so you have to be intentional with what you say. You have
yep,
to say it the way that Lori said. I want to
yeah,
be a profitable business owner. I
yes.
want you to bring the people that will help me become a profitable business. That can be employees, that can be an assistant, that can be people that refer you clients, that can be a circle of people who know tax strategy, who can educate you on the fundamentals, on the basics. You need to ask for that. You can't just think that it's going to come out of nowhere.
I love
I love
that.
it.
I love that. So we went through legal, we went through tax, we went through finance, and we ended up with a little bit of what philosophical and spiritual, asking the universe to bring you to be a profitable entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So Sadie, I will have to bring you in for a comment before I end today. What do you think about my new segment? That's going to be it. We're going to learn how to be profitable entrepreneurs. We got to hold on to that one for next year.
I mean, I'm vibing on this energy. Like, as you guys know, I always get the scoop before we launch, our webinars. And I mean, these folks have been on fire where I was just like, I see the way. I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh, did I max out my Roth IRA? I'm like, I better get on that like right now. Like literally, that's what I did while you guys were talking.
That's awesome. Oh, Dalia, thank you for always being on. And you know what? We're chatting during the holidays because we got big plans, girl. So I'm
We
going to get in touch with you
do.
and we're going to have our holiday chat on what you and I are going to do together to help people become profitable entrepreneurs. That's going to be our goal. Okay.
All
So I
right,
want to say,
guys.
first of all, everybody, thank you for being here for a whole year, a whole year. My frequent flyers, I see so many names in there that I recognize. If you are new to the show, yes, it's crazy and all over, but that's the exciting news because it is the raw facts and the information that you need. January 7th, I will be back with you. We will talk about whatever you want. I know there were some questions in here. Remind me, I'll go through the tax, back of the envelope tax calculations, walk through anything about an S Corp, anything we talked about today. We will take our time together and I will go through it. So for now, I want to wish everybody to have a very, very happy holiday season. And it's you coming every week that makes me continue to do this. And I have no plans on stopping it at right now. So I will be back with everybody next year. Sadie will stay behind as always to make sure you get Dalia's information, SBDC's my information, and continue any conversations you want in the chat. So, Sadie, I will see you on the 7th too. You have a happy holiday and a nice break.
Oh, Lori, I'm already like doing the sniffle tears, but I'm thinking positively. It's like we're gonna come back, was it recharge and rejuvenated for 2026? That's what we're gonna do.
We are, because like I don't think you and I have ever gone without talking to each other for this period of time too. But I am going to first of all finish getting the tree out of my backyard, which I noticed my kind neighbor. That's one thing when you live in the country. My looks like my tree's gone. That's pretty cool. So maybe I'm going to admire my new tree trim, and I'm going to be very thankful and blessed for this wonderful year and excited to come back in a positive way. And I'm literally serious, guys. Let's look at being profitable next year. I'm getting too many tearful conversations with people, and I really would love everybody to join me in that goal. So, with that, I'm signing off. I want to say thank you for my frequent flyers, all my wonderful people that are here with me every week. And if you're new, would love to see you in the new year. And with that, I'm Lori Williams, your host of Small Biz Talk. See you next year, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Lori. All righty, guys. Yeah, so that was the last show of 2025. But don't worry, we will be back just in a couple of weeks, as we said, recharge and ready to go for the new year. So, as always, I am here. I'm going to stay behind a little bit, make sure that you guys have everything. So, please let me know if you need anything in the chat. I'm going to drop those January sessions that Lori has come up because they take up a little bit of space. But other than that, I have everything in the chat for you. Thank you, Brenda. Yes, like I said, I'm just gonna come back and like you're gonna have to like calm me down because I'm gonna be so full of recharging that battery, right? Where we're like, oh, let's reset and revive and be profitable, as Lori said. All righty, guys. So I am here. Don't worry. Let me know if you need anything in the chat. And other than that, have the most amazing holiday. Happy, happy New Year, and cannot wait to see you in 26.